Okay, so I've been over found media in the past, and for me, they're some of the most interesting and satisfying to hear about, because we finally get to see how or why a piece of media was lost and how we finally found it, which sometimes is more exciting than the piece of lost media itself ever was. So today, we're taking a look at 13 more pieces of found media. An American Hippie in Israel, also titled The Hitchhiker in Israel, was a 1972 film that was made and directed by Amos Sefer. The plot of the film involves an American soldier who goes on a trip to Israel in order to get away from the horrors he saw in the Vietnam War. After this, he meets with some other people, and eventually they all move to an island where they eventually all turn against each other. However, this film is definitely not well known in the West, and when it was released, it was panned by critics for many aspects of filmmaking, including the dialogue, cinematography, and directing, not to mention the terrible English dub that was made for the film. It wasn't until 2007 that interest in the film was finally rekindled, when a man named Yaniv Edelstein managed to actually find a copy of the film, as it had become extremely obscure after its release until it was eventually lost. But after it was found, it was screened and eventually gained somewhat of a new cult following. Since then, the film has gone on to be remastered and re-released on DVD and Blu-ray by Grindhouse Releasing in 2014 and is now widely available today. Bolivar. This lost film is an obscure animated movie of Colombian origin that was originally released on Christmas 2003 and was based on the real life of the famous Colombian leader Simon Bolivar. Like I said, the film was quite obscure, and for the time it was only mentioned online in regards to its very low quality, although the film itself at this point was unavailable. In 2003, a website called El Tiempo posted an article that claimed that the film would have a Colombian dub. Although this has never been found, and in fact, when the film did air in Colombia, it was aired with a Mexican dub. And finally, on December 4th, 2015, YouTube user A. Ariza uploaded the full movie with the Mexican dub. Strangely enough, even though the movie was apparently lost for years, the film was aired several times in Colombia and still continues to be aired sparsely today. Kobe, Small Army. This Lego knockoff video game was created by a Polish company called Kobe, which is called Best Lock in America, which essentially just makes bootleg Legos. For a time, information about this game was very scarce and it was very obscure, and only the intro from the game had ever been found. However, on March 5th, 2007, the game was actually found and uploaded by user Spartan, and the third-person shooter can still be played today. The Electric Piper. This film is an animated adaptation of The Pied Piper, which was a Nickelodeon cartoon series that aired in 2003. It was set in the late 1960s and starred a guitarist named Sly, who would use his music to get rid of rats that were invading a town called Hamlin. Strangely, after he does this, the mayor then refuses to give Sly his reward, which would have been a motorcycle, and so out of revenge, he convinces the children of the town to run away with him into the mountains. What a strange synopsis. The film was never released on VHS or DVD, and there have only been a few airings ever on Nickelodeon, with only a few clips being uploaded to YouTube. And although there were multiple confirmed copies that existed, as confirmed by the director who had one himself, it wasn't until August 20th, 2016 when Lost Media Wiki user Stuart Is Me actually got a copy of the film and uploaded it to YouTube. And it has since been restored in 1080p and uploaded to YouTube, where it can still be watched in its entirety. Frozen Hell. Written by John W. Campbell Jr. in 1938, this novel was released as an abridged edition called Who Goes There in 1938, which has had 4 film adaptations since it was released, which you might recognize by its famous adaptation, The Thing, from 1982 by John Carpenter. It wasn't until 2018 that the manuscript for Frozen Hell was discovered among Campbell's documents by author Alex Navalny while doing research for another book about John W. Campbell and other science fiction writers. And in October of 2018, a Kickstarter was made in order to release and publish the book, and received $155,000 of its mere $1,000 goal, and was officially released in 2019, with a film adaptation already being planned and in the works. Fortress of Love. This documentary was based around the Goodman family, which was a Christian family that toured the world from the 1990s to the early 2000s, performing even for the Pope and even at United Nations conferences. Unfortunately, tragedy struck the family on Sunday, December 8th, 1996, when the family got into a car accident that resulted in the deaths of 3 of the children. The family, immediately after recovering from both grief and their own injuries, went back to touring, but this time not with their music, but with a mission to speak about their experiences, recovering from the loss of their family members. And on December 20th, 1997, the documentary surrounding their journey would air and was called Fortress of Love. It was also released on VHS, but the tape became incredibly rare, and apparently there was also an even more obscure and rare DVD release. The special itself wasn't found until August 14th, 2014, when it was found by YouTube user HomestartRunnerTron, and was uploaded where it can now be viewed today. Friday the 13th, Part 13. So everyone knows what Friday the 13th is, but what you might not know is in 2013 there was a planned Part 13 for the franchise by Paramount that went through a long and arduous production but was eventually cancelled. It was first described, however, by the writer and director of the film, David Bruckner, as a quote, 80s coming-of-age monster slasher movie that was made using the ever-popular at the time found footage format. However, the film ended up being reworked into what was now called Friday the 13th 3D, which would have taken place as a flashback to 1988 when Jason was at Camp Crystal Lake, and instead of him dying as seen in the first film, he would have survived and would be hunted down by the camp counselors there. Now, the film was never actually made. However, most of the lost material from it, including the final screenplay, were found and uploaded by Lost Media Wiki user YoshiKiller2S, with the final script of the movie being titled Friday the 13th, Part 13, which would have taken place in 1977, where it would follow Jason Voorhees' father as the killer, Elias Voorhees, who would wear a sack mask instead of the iconic hockey mask. Golly Ghost Goal. This PC game, developed by Namco, was a Japanese puzzle game released on March 29th, 1996, and was apparently a spin-off of another game called Golly Ghosts, which was, I guess, a rip-off of another game called Color Lines. The game itself was known to be pretty obscure and very rare, but as luck would have it, on January 5th, 2017, a user named NamcoKid47 uploaded the game to Mediafire, and the game could subsequently be played on an emulator. However, this version of the game, as it turned out, was actually missing some files, including some of the video files. However, these were also eventually found and uploaded by user Tatsumi on September 17th, 2017, and as far as we know, this is the complete version of the game, and it can still be played today. Grandma Look What I Found. Created in 2003, the Canadian children's TV series Grandma Look What I Found was aired on Treehouse TV. The show focused on the characters of Terrell and Grandma Ella, who would tell a story each episode, which were about 5 minutes long each, although apparently it was originally made into 5 different compilations that contained about 7 to 9 stories each. These compilations were actually given a very limited and obscure release on DVD around that time, and the show was even remembered quite lovingly by fans, with the actress who played Grandma Ella, Phyllis Walker, being praised and remembered fondly for her work on the show, as well as being a public advocate in the Black community in Canada. However, even with all the fans of the show, it was still nowhere to be found online. That was until November 29th, 2020, when the entire series was uploaded to the Internet Archive. Hypocrites, also sometimes called The Hypocrites, is a silent film produced in 1915 and directed by Lois Weber. And the film might be most well known for how controversial it was at the time that it was made, as it was recognized as the first film to show full frontal nudity on camera. The plot of the film concerned a preacher living in Paris, France, who ends up falling asleep and wakes up in medieval times as a monk, who then begins to work on a statue which he reveals to the king and is eventually killed for, as the statue depicts a naked woman. And from dying in the dream, he also dies in real life, ? And wakes up to see a nude woman take him through all of man's hypocrisies and even witness the gate of truth. Yeah, if that sounded confusing to you, it definitely did to me, but really this film was ahead of its time according to most, with its surreal imagery and nudity even being present in the film. However, of course, it was controversial when it was made, and despite the efforts of many people trying to get the film censored, it was eventually aired due to the authorization of a judge. However, since its airing, it became lost, and many people forgot about it. That was until April 22nd, 2008, when Kino International released a remastered DVD version of the film, which can still be viewed now on YouTube or on the DVD release today. In the Mind of the Damned. This is an obscure film released not too long ago, in 2013, that was made by Dung Lizak Productions, which also created the film The Melonheads, released in 2011. However, In the Mind of the Damned was not like The Melonheads. It had a lot more of a serious tone, and was far less campy, featuring a man suffering from a mental breakdown due to a bad acid trip, which was filmed using most of the same cast from The Melonheads. The film was never officially released because the director of the film, Dake Lizak, said that the actors actually disliked the plot of the film, and since being taken down from a website where it briefly appeared, it had not been seen since. However, that all changed on December 24th, 2018, when an anonymous user actually received a copy of the film from the director himself, and then uploaded the film to Google Drive where it can still be viewed. The Incredibles McDonald's commercial. Way back in 2004, with the release of the Pixar hit The Incredibles, of course there was bound to be a ton of merchandise to sell. And on that list of merch was McDonald's Happy Meal toys. And with Happy Meal toys, as was the case in the early 2000s, there had to be a commercial. And there was, but strangely enough, even though the movie was so popular that even the Happy Meal toys sold out at McDonald's, this commercial that showed them off ended up becoming lost media, with only 2 short clips of it being found, and a reconstruction that had to be made in order to show what the full commercial may have actually looked like by combining both segments. However, on November 17th, 2018, YouTube user Craig's 1996 Backup Entertainment uploaded a ton of old commercials from November 11th, 2004. And of course among these was the Incredibles McDonald's commercial, which can now be viewed in full on YouTube. NBA Elite 11. Developed for the PS3 and Xbox 360, NBA Elite 11 was to be released in October of 2010, and was to be a vastly different NBA game compared to the other countless titles, and would implement new gameplay mechanics, even saying they would, quote, pioneer a groundbreaking change in the basketball video game segment. The game was so far into production that copies were actually being pressed to be sold to consumers, and even a demo was released prior to the game's release. However, after being delayed for a short time, it was officially cancelled, although a very limited amount of the PS3 games were actually sold, and it's considered one of the rarest PS3 games out there, going for sometimes thousands of dollars if you can even find it. The reason it was cancelled though? Well, it was very harshly criticized when the demo released due to many glitches, bugs, and just terrible AI, and this infamous T-posing glitch. And after the game became so rare, it was impossible to play without the disc, as there had been no dumps of it. That was until July of 2021, when the PS3 version of the game was eventually found and dumped. where it can now be played on emulators. Alright, thank you guys again so much for watching. I know I've said this before, but yeah, I've got a lot of projects in the works, including a Halloween themed episode, which I hope will be pretty fun. But before I go, I just want to take a quick second to plug my second channel if you haven't checked it out already. Sourcebrew 2. Fair warning, it's not at all the same content. This is just where I post literally whatever. And for now, it's been mostly me gambling. So if you ever thought you'd want to hear me degenerate on camera and completely lose my mind and usually chill demeanor, go check out Sourcebrew 2.
Gloves! What? Yo! Let's go, what?
No way, did I actually win that? Anyway, that's all I have for now, so stay tuned and hopefully I'll have another video out by next week. Anyway, this is Sourcebrew and I'll see you guys next time.